In this lesson, we're going to talk about JavaScript functions. But what are functions in JavaScript? Functions is a block of code designed to do some tasks. But it doesn't do its task until you call it or invoke it. Let me explain to you. But first, let me tell you the function syntax. To create function in JavaScript, you just have to type function keyword, then the function name. For example, this function, then parentheses, then to block. Okay? Anything you add here, you can implement it. For example, console.log function called. So now function syntax is the following. First, function keyword, then let's create a multi-line comments. It's better. First function keyword, then function name, then parentheses, and finally block of code to implement it. Okay? Those rules are the rule of functions in JavaScript. So now let's rename this function. For example, let's make it log something. Now function is not called yet, so we cannot get this log here. But when we call it, to call a function, just add the function name, log something, and follow it by two parentheses. Here you can call a function log, function called, or function get invoked. What is the use of this parentheses? In this parentheses, you can add something called parameters. What's parameter? For example, let's create a function called log name. Okay? Log name. If I just type here HeroDev, when we invoke this function, we get in the log HeroDev. What if we invoked it again? We have two HeroDevs. But now I want to make this function reusable. For example, I don't want to log HeroDev, HeroDev, HeroDev. I want to log different names. So we can use here something called parameter. Okay? For example, let's add the parameter called name. And instead of log HeroDev, we just log the name. Okay? When we call a function here, you have to pass a parameter. You have to pass an argument inside this parentheses, because this function accepts one parameter and its name. So you have to add the name here and here. So let's add the name here. For example, here HeroDev. And here, for example, my name. So now the first function log HeroDev and the second function log my name. You can type here whatever you want. Any something that you type here, it get logs, because this function is a block of code to do some task. And to create a function, you need four things: function keyword, function name, and that's the name, log name, parentheses here to accept parameters, and block of code. Inside this block of code, you do the task. So now let's have another example. Let's create a function that sum two numbers. You have two numbers and you want to create a function to sum those two numbers. Okay? To create a function, first you need function keyword. Function, just type function. That's the rule number one. Rule number two, the function name. So let's make it, for example, sum two numbers. You can pick any name that you want. Sum two numbers. That's the name of the function. And that's type whatever you want, except reserved word. So don't use, for example, f. It can't be a function name, because F is a reserved word. So just type any name that you want, but then don't add reserved keywords in JavaScript. Then the rule number 3 is the parentheses. Rule number 4, the block of code. Now you have here a valid JavaScript function syntax. We want to sum two numbers. Okay, so let's return, for example, 4 plus 1. Okay, and let's call this function. Let's console.log it to see what is this function return to us. Okay, console.log. Sum two numbers. What if we just add here 4, 2? We got here 8. 4 plus 4 is 8. But this function only gets the sum of 4 and 4. I want to create a reusable function to get the sum of any two numbers. So here you can use the parameters. You can add here any parameter that you want. For example, number 1 and another parameter number 2. And instead of return 4 and 4, just return number 1 and number 2. Okay? And when we call a function here, just add two numbers, for example 5 and 7. If you have here, if you have a look here, we have here 12. 5 plus 7 is 12. If we just type here 10, you have here 15. What if you want to get the sum of three numbers? Just add your number 3 and add here return number 1 plus number 2 plus number 3 and add here a third number, for example 1. So now what we have here? We have here three parameters, and this function return to us the value of the sum of three parameters. And we have here three arguments. The parameter, when you call it in a function, we call it argument. So we have here three arguments, 5 and 10 and 1. So get the sum of them is 16. Don't understand? Let me give you another third example. Let's create a function that return my first and last name. So what's the rule? First rule is the function keyword. And this function keyword is function. Just type function. What is the rule number 2? The rule number 2 is function name. Let's name it get my name. The rule number 3 is parentheses. We want to get rid of those errors. So rule number 3 is parentheses. And rule number, the block of code. What are we going to return to this function? We're going to return first name plus last name. Or let's have a space here. Let's have a space like this. Okay, and here we're going to add first name, parameter, and last name. So now let's call this function get my name, and let's add two strings, and those strings are the first name and last name. Let's make the first name hero and the last name dev. Let's log the value of this function. Console.log. Look, we have here HeroDev. You can change it to whatever you want. For example, super HeroDev. We have here super HeroDev. If this lesson is hard to you, I want just to make sure that you can create function using those 4 rules. We're gonna talk about functions later, so don't worry if this lesson is hard. Thanks for watching and see you in next lesson.